There's a version of you that wakes up at 5 a.m., works out, eats clean, builds their dream, shows up fully. You can picture them clearly. They're disciplined, focused, alive. Then there's the actual you, hitting snooze, scrolling for an hour, eating whatever's easy, putting off the work that matters. And here's what's wild. You think the gap between these two people is willpower. It's not. It's that the current you's built a life of counterfeit comfort, things that feel safe, but are actually slowly suffocating who you're meant to become. And you're choosing that suffocation every single day because the real discomfort of transformation feels worse than the slow death of staying the same. Until you understand what you're actually choosing, you'll stay stuck forever. Look, you keep setting goals, building momentum, then mysteriously self-sabotaging just before breakthrough. You think it's discipline or motivation, but the real problem is that your current identity is fighting your desired identity, and current identity always wins. This video reveals the three invisible mechanisms that keep you trapped in who you are now: identity protection, the comfort addiction cycle, and the misalignment between your stated goals and your actual values. Most advice tells you to try harder. I'm showing you why trying harder makes it worse and how to dissolve the resistance instead of fighting it. You'll finally understand why change has felt impossible and what actually works. So, why haven't you become who you want to be? It's not what you think. Let me show you what's really happening underneath all your failed attempts. First, you need to understand something that nobody talks about. Your brain treats identity like survival. And I don't mean that metaphorically. I mean biologically, neurologically. Your brain doesn't distinguish between physical survival and psychological survival. Your current identity equals psychological survival. A threat to that identity equals a threat to survival. And change, real change, triggers the same fear response as physical danger. Think about that. When you try to become someone different, your brain reads it the same way it would read a tiger walking into your living room. It's not trying to sabotage you. It's trying to save you. Let me tell you about someone I know. They had this vision. They wanted to become disciplined. They could see it so clearly. Wake up early. Work out consistently. Build their business. Be present with their family. This structured, focused, powerful version of themselves. But every time they tried, they failed. Not just once, dozens of times. And they couldn't understand why. They had the information, they knew what to do. They'd read the books, watched the videos, understood the steps, but they couldn't sustain it. And the shame was crushing. What's wrong with me? Why can't I do this? Everyone else seems to figure it out. Why am I so broken? But here's what was actually happening underneath. Their current identity was, I'm the spontaneous, creative, free-spirited person. That's who they'd been their whole life. That's who their friends knew. That's who their family expected. That's the story they'd told themselves for 30 years. And their desired identity was, I'm the disciplined, structured, focused person. And these two identities are in direct conflict. They're not compatible without serious integration work. So every single time they tried to be disciplined, it felt like betraying who they were, like killing the spontaneous person and replacing them with someone else. And their brain read that as, if I become disciplined, I'll lose the spontaneous me. I'll lose the part of me that people love. I'll lose the part of me that feels like me. And here's the thing about fear of loss. It's always stronger than desire for gain. Always. You will work harder to avoid losing something than to gain something new. So when their brain calculated the cost, it was this: gain discipline, but lose spontaneity, creativity, and the identity I've built my entire life around. And the brain said absolutely not. Too expensive. So it created resistance. Not conscious resistance, automatic resistance. They'd set the alarm for 5 a.m., and their hand would hit snooze before they were even awake. They'd plan to work out and suddenly remember 17 urgent things they had to do instead. They'd sit down to work on their business and feel this overwhelming urge to clean the kitchen, check email, research something tangentially related, anything but the actual work. And they thought this was weakness. They thought this was lack of discipline. But it wasn't. It was self-protection. Self-sabotage is actually the brain's way of protecting your current identity from being destroyed by the new one. And there's another layer to this that nobody talks about. Your relationships are invested in you staying who you are. Your friends know you as the spontaneous one, the one who says yes to random adventures, the one who's a little chaotic but fun. If you become the disciplined person who wakes up at 5 a.m. and sticks to a schedule, what happens to those friendships? Will they still want to hang out with you? Will they feel judged by your choices? Will they feel like you've become boring? And your family, they've been dealing with your chaos for years. If you suddenly change, do they trust it? Do they support it? Or do they unconsciously try to pull you back to who you've always been? Because that's familiar. And even if they don't actively resist, there's still this fear inside you. If I change, will they still love me? Will they still recognize me? Will I still belong? And the self-concept investment, this is huge. You've spent years, maybe decades, building stories about who you are. I'm just not a morning person. I'm naturally disorganized. I'm creative, not disciplined. These stories become your identity. They're not just descriptions of your behavior, they're definitions of your being. And challenging them feels like challenging your entire existence. It feels like you're saying everything I've believed about myself is wrong. And that's terrifying. So the brain doubles down. It defends these stories. It finds evidence to support them. You try to wake up early, and it's hard. And your brain says, see, told you, you're not a morning person. This is just who you are. Stop trying to be someone you're not. And this person I'm telling you about, they had this moment of recognition. They realized they weren't failing at discipline. They were succeeding at staying themselves. The self-sabotage wasn't weakness. It was loyalty to their current identity. The enemy wasn't external circumstances or lack of willpower. It was their own internal protection mechanism, doing exactly what it was designed to do. And that recognition changed everything. Because once you see the resistance, once you understand what it's actually protecting, you can have a conversation with it. You can work with it instead of fighting it. And here's the shift they had to make. You can't become a new person while defending the old one. You just can't. It doesn't work. But you also can't destroy the old one, because that triggers all the fear and resistance we just talked about. So what do? You integrate. You evolve. Instead of, I need to stop being spontaneous and become disciplined, it becomes, I'm someone who's learning discipline while honoring my creativity. I'm expanding, not replacing. I'm adding structure to support my freedom, not trading one for the other. And that small reframe, it gives the brain permission. It says you're safe. We're not killing who you are. We're evolving who you are. And the resistance starts to soften. Not disappear, but soften. Enough that change becomes possible. But there's a second mechanism that's even more insidious, because it masquerades as self-care. And that's the comfort addiction cycle. We've confused comfort with safety and safety with survival, and it's killing us. Evolutionarily, comfort meant survival. If you were warm, fed, safe from predators, you survived another day. So our brains are wired to seek comfort and avoid discomfort. That made sense when discomfort meant you might get eaten by a lion. But in the modern world, comfort doesn't mean survival. It often means stagnation, numbing, slowly dying inside while looking fine on the outside. But your brain still reads comfort as good and discomfort as danger. And here's where it gets really tricky. Every comfort behavior, scrolling, binging shows, eating junk food, avoiding difficult tasks, gives you a hit of dopamine, that feel-good chemical. and your brain learns this pattern. Discomfort arises. You seek comfort. You get dopamine. Discomfort temporarily goes away. And this becomes an automatic loop. You don't even think about it anymore. You feel the discomfort of growth, the anxiety of stepping into the unknown, and your brain immediately says, let's do something that feels good. And you reach for your phone, you open the fridge, you turn on Netflix, and you get temporary relief. But it's counterfeit relief. It's not actual peace or rest. It's just the absence of discomfort. And it comes with a side effect: shame. Because part of you knows you're avoiding. Part of you knows you're choosing comfort over growth. And that shame creates more discomfort, which triggers more comfort seeking. And the cycle intensifies. Let me paint you a specific picture. Someone wants to become an entrepreneur. They know they need to start, to build, to risk. But every time they sit down to actually work on their business, anxiety spikes. What if I fail? What if I'm not good enough? What if I waste all this time and energy and it doesn't work? And that anxiety is uncomfortable, really uncomfortable. So their brain says, this feels bad. Let's do something that feels good. And they scroll social media. Or they snack even though they're not hungry. Or they watch TV. Or they clean the house, which feels productive but is actually just productive procrastination. And they get temporary relief from the anxiety. But the relief is counterfeit. It's not addressing the fear. It's just numbing it. And when they stop scrolling or eating or watching, the anxiety is still there. Plus, now there's shame. You did it again. You wasted another hour, another day, another week. Why can't you just do the thing? And that shame is more discomfort, which triggers more comfort seeking. Round and round. And here's what's devastating about this cycle. Each time they choose comfort over growth, their life gets smaller. Every time they avoid the discomfort of starting their business, they're choosing to stay in the comfort of their current situation, which means fewer risks taken, which means fewer opportunities. Less discomfort faced means less capacity built, because your capacity to handle discomfort is like a muscle. You have to use it to grow it. And every time you choose avoidance, that muscle atrophies. So the more they avoid, the stronger the avoidance pattern becomes. And over time, they're trapped in this tiny comfort zone. But here's the thing, it's not even comfortable anymore. It's suffocating. They're safe, but they're dying inside. And they can feel it. But the prison has become so familiar that leaving it feels more terrifying than staying. And this is an addiction. It's not as dramatic as substance addiction, but it's the same mechanism. You use a substance, in this case, comfort behaviors, to avoid feeling. You get temporary relief. But long-term, you're imprisoned by the need for that relief. And like any addiction, tolerance builds. You need more and more comfort to get the same relief. 1 hour of scrolling becomes 2, becomes 3. One episode becomes a whole season. The comfort isn't even enjoyable anymore. You're just trying to avoid the discomfort of being present with yourself and your life. And this person I'm talking about, they had a wake-up moment. They realized they weren't resting. They were hiding. Comfort wasn't recharging them. It was depleting them. Every comfort choice was a vote against who they wanted to become. And the so-called safe choice, the comfort choice, was actually the most dangerous one, because playing it safe was guaranteeing they'd never become who they wanted to be. It was a slow death disguised as self-care. So they started to reframe. Discomfort isn't danger. It's data that you're growing. If you're comfortable all the time, you're not growing. You're stagnant. And comfort isn't rest. Real rest is restorative. It fills you up. It gives you energy. Comfort addiction is numbing. It empties you out. It depletes you while pretending to soothe you. And they started asking themselves this question every time they faced a choice. Is this moving me toward who I want to be or away from who I want to be? Not, is this comfortable? Not, is this easy, but is this aligned with the person I'm trying to become? And if the answer was toward, they did it even if it was uncomfortable. And if the answer was away, they stopped even if it was comfortable. And they created what I call discomfort tolerance practice. Small daily doses of intentional discomfort. Cold shower, difficult conversation, hard workout, scary email, 5 minutes of meditation when their mind wanted to wander. Whatever created that sensation of this is uncomfortable, but I can handle it. And over time, they built neurological capacity to sit with discomfort without immediately reaching for comfort. The discomfort didn't go away, but their relationship with it changed. It stopped being an emergency that required immediate relief. It became information, it became a signal. Oh, I'm uncomfortable, that means I'm growing. And the comfort addiction started to loosen its grip. So, let me break this down into the truths you need to hear. First, you can't become someone new while defending who you currently are. Every identity has an immune system that fights change. To transform, you must consciously release your old identity. Not destroy it, evolve it, integrate it. Give yourself permission to change without losing yourself. Second, self-sabotage isn't weakness, it's protection. Your brain is keeping you safe from the perceived death of identity change. Once you see this, you stop fighting yourself and start understanding yourself. And understanding creates compassion, and compassion creates space for change. Third, comfort and growth are inversely related. The more you prioritize comfort, the less you grow. The more you embrace discomfort, the more you expand. And real safety doesn't come from avoiding discomfort. It comes from building capacity to handle it. Fourth, you haven't become who you want to be because who you want to be conflicts with what you actually value right now. If you truly valued discipline, you'd be disciplined. The behavior would flow naturally from the value. The work isn't forcing the behavior, it's updating your values. And fifth, becoming isn't a destination, it's a direction. You don't arrive at new you one day. You practice new you daily until the practice becomes identity. And here's the paradox. The harder you try to force yourself to change, the more resistance you create. Force creates friction. But the more you understand and work with your resistance, the easier change becomes. Understanding creates flow. You're not trying to overpower your brain, you're trying to work with it. So, how do you actually become who you want to be? Let me give you the framework. This week, do an identity audit. Write down who am I right now? Be brutally honest. Then, write who do I want to become? Then, and this is the crucial part, ask what identity am I afraid to lose if I change? Maybe you're afraid if you become disciplined, you'll lose your spontaneity and people will think you're boring. Maybe you're afraid if you become successful, you'll lose your humility and people will resent you. Whatever it is, name it, because this reveals the hidden resistance. And once you see it, you can address it. You can say, I can be disciplined and creative. I can be successful and humble. Integration, not replacement. Every day, practice discomfort tolerance. Choose one small discomfort unrelated to your main goal. Cold shower, meditation, calling someone instead of texting, eating a meal without your phone, just 5 minutes of intentional discomfort. This builds your neurological capacity to sit with discomfort without seeking comfort. And that capacity transfers to the bigger discomforts later. Every month, do a values excavation. Ask, what do I actually value versus what do I think I should value? If you valued health, you'd make health choices. If you're not making those choices, you value something else more. Maybe comfort, maybe convenience, maybe approval. No judgment, just honesty. And then ask, do I want to update my values? You get to choose. Consciously choose to value what supports who you want to become. Every morning before you start your day, ask, what would my desired identity do today? Not what should I do, but what would discipline me do? What would confident me do? What would healthy me do? Then do one thing that person would do. You're not faking it. You're practicing the identity until it becomes you. Because identity isn't something you discover. It's something you practice into existence. And ongoing, when you feel resistance to a growth action, don't fight it. Say thank you for trying to protect me. I'm safe. This discomfort is growth, not danger. Then do the thing anyway. But with compassion, not force. You're retraining your brain. You're teaching it that discomfort doesn't equal danger. And over time, the resistance decreases because your brain learns you're safe. So here's why you haven't become who you want to be. Your current identity is protecting itself. Your comfort addiction is keeping you small. And you're trying to force behavior change without addressing the identity, values, and discomfort relationship underneath. But now you see it. And seeing it changes everything. You're not broken. You're not lazy. You're not lacking willpower. You're just trying to change the wrong thing. You haven't become who you want to be yet. And that yet is everything. Because you're not stuck. You're not behind. You're not failing. You're in the process of becoming. And that process requires releasing who you've been while honoring the journey that brought you here. The person you want to become isn't waiting for you to be ready. They're waiting for you to practice being them. One choice, one day. One moment of choosing growth over comfort, truth over performance, evolution over protection. Every version of yourself you've abandoned, every intended self in your graveyard, they're not dead. They're possibilities. And possibilities don't expire, they just wait. Wait for you to stop betraying them with comfort. Wait for you to release the identity that's keeping you safe but small. Wait for you to build the capacity to sit with the discomfort of becoming. You don't need to be ready. You need to start practicing. And with every practice, you're not becoming someone new. You're becoming who you've always been underneath the fear. If this helped you see why you've been stuck, drop a comment and tell me, what identity are you afraid to lose if you change? What's the resistance actually protecting? And if you want more truth about transformation that goes deeper than just do it, subscribe. Because you deserve to understand yourself, not just push yourself. I'll see you in the next one. Now go practice being who you want to become.